What is up, YouTube? I've got behind the scenes look at how we made this ultimate FPV drone one shot for the Yacht Week.
Let's go!
So I'm going to talk about how we planned it, how we filmed it. I'm going to tell you about the drones that we used. And talk about some of the custom modifications that we did. We're trying out the custom floaty, all the crashes into the sea, all the lost GoPros, and some of the miraculous rescues too.
We got it!
And then I'm going to take you inside the edit. I'm going to show you some of the VFX work that I did in After Effects and Cinema 4D to bring this to life. I hope you enjoy it. It's a little known fact that drone hygiene is just as important as dental hygiene. You've got to make sure that you brush your drone every morning. So I thought I'd start by talking a little bit about where this idea came from. I've worked with the Yacht Week for a couple of years now, and last year we had an idea to try and do an FPV drone one shot. So this was just after I started flying FPV, and the piloting was not very impressive. And I think that moment was a bit of a light bulb moment for me. It made me think about the potential of what you could do if you were to try and create the ultimate Yacht Week FPV drone one shot. So fast forward a year, when the guys got in contact with me again, I knew exactly what I was going to suggest, and I knew exactly what I wanted to try and make this year. So we came up with this storyboard that had sort of 7 or 8 different scenes, and we tried to get as much of the awesome stuff that happens on the Yacht Weekend as possible. And then my job was basically to come up with a kind of seamless flow in between all of these different scenes. So I was trying to think of the best and the most imaginative transitions. What kind of small things could we fly through? How could we use 3D elements? How can we use VFX? And how can we throw in some unexpected quirky moments as well? And if you haven't seen the film already, there's a link in the description below, so definitely check it out. So let's just talk a little bit about the drones that we used. Obviously, FPV drones were the main tool for this production. The first one I've got here is my 5-inch, so this is one that I built myself about a year or so ago. I'm very fond of this drone. It still feels like the same drone to me, even though I've basically broken and replaced pretty much every single part on it, so I'm not sure it technically is still. And then the other drone I used a lot was this 3-inch Cine Whoop. So it's a little bit smaller, it flies a lot slower, so it's much better for going through small gaps or people's legs. This is an iFlight Mega Bee, and I've actually customized this a little bit since the shoot. So I've printed out these custom guards, and it says, "Can I get a whoop whoop?" on it, because it's called a Cine Whoop. In terms of cameras, we pretty much did the whole thing on the GoPro Hero 8, but then I also used the Insta360, so I've got the 1R here for a couple of the shots. And we actually took my red Komodo with a fancy anamorphic lens out as well, because we were shooting some other stuff while we were doing this film. But I do think it's quite cool that for this project, the only things we used were these kind of relatively cheap 300 quid action cameras. And I think it just goes to show that it's much more about what you do with it and much more about the storytelling and the ideas than the expensive kit that you're using. There we go, all the drones, got the red, touched on the red, got the heli. Folded the heli in. Right, let's jump into the film now and take a look at it all shot by shot. I should just talk a little bit about this opening shot here with the guys jumping over the drone. What we actually did is we put the GoPro mounted backwards on the drone, and then I basically flew it under everybody and got them to jump over it.
Yeah, dude!
This is the first time I've ever mounted the camera backwards, and I actually thought it works really well because people kind of appear out of nowhere. You get this really cool effect. Alright, so let's jump into the After Effects project. The camera pulls out and we've got this kind of Photo Flickbook effect thing. I've actually talked about how to create this before in a tutorial that I did from our project for the Yacht Week last year, so there's a link on screen if you want to go and have a look at that. And then what I've also got now is I have a template on my store, and I'm going to take you there now. So it's called arassets.com, and you can see Photo Flickbook After Effects template. And it's basically a pre-built template where you can drop your footage in and it creates this kind of cool Photo Flickbook effect. And there's a few different versions of it. Anyway, so that's pretty much exactly what I've done here. Take a look at the tutorial from last year if you want to find out more, and if you're interested in creating this effect, then you can grab the template on my store. So let's check out the first proper scene, which is the boat life sequence.
Let's go!
So we shot this on a beautiful, glassy, crystal clear morning. And actually the only place that I could find to go to be out of shot was lying down on the top deck. So that's what I'm doing here.
Okay. All right, and here comes the shot. Let's do this. Woo! Go. Go on, Annie. Yoo!
Meal, coffee, and then we're through the boat. Woo!
Nice.
Peace. Nice one, little lads. So let's just take a look at this transition where we go out through the cabin and then we pass through the window. The first thing is this sign. You can see here I built this kind of wooden sign thing. I just wanted to create something that was a bit more interesting to put inside the cabin of the boat, just to sort of lead on to the next location. And obviously the next location is in the woods, so that's why I made this kind of cool wooden sign. This is the 3D model that I built and designed for this in Cinema 4D. To hide the kind of transition, I've got this sort of glowing layer. This is using an effect called Trap Code Shine, which is a really, really awesome effect. It comes as part of the Red Giant VFX suite. You can see I can make these glowing beams, and that helped to disguise the transition into the next location. And then what I've done to create that transition is just a simple mask. So you can see here I've got the mask, I've got all the windows cut out. Obviously quite a lot of work to cut it out neatly. So you can see when you play that through, you've got all the elements combining together. So you have the original shot, and then the glow fades in, fills the room with these kind of light beams, and then it hides that transition as the next shot just slowly fades in.
Yacht, let's go.
So the next scene is at the Carpe Diem Beach Club party, and we start off on a 360 camera shot, and we have the 360 camera mounted on the Wirral Light cable cam. You can see the cable cam in action here at a different event, and I'll just show you what the raw footage looks like. You can see off the cable cam we've got this kind of unfolded 360 shot, and then as we get to the DJ decks, that's when I've got the text coming in here. And then to create this kind of tiny planet effect, I've used the GoPro FX reframe plugin, and that enables you to reframe the shot. If you've got a 360 camera, you can change which way you're looking, you can do these cool effects. I'm not going to go into too much detail about how to use this plugin because I'm going to do a proper tutorial on how I edit 360 video at some point soon. But I do actually have another little thing on my store. I've got this 360 camera transitions bundle, and it is for Adobe Premiere, and you can basically drop in your 360 footage and you can create these kind of cool flipping up, flipping down, flipping left, flipping right kind of transitions straight away out of your 360 footage, which can be quite fiddly and time consuming. So yeah, this is another thing that's up on the store if you're interested in playing around with some 360 footage the way I do it. So then we transition into the next drone shot. I basically flew the drone kind of in the same sort of area and then just tried to blend the two together with a little crossfade. And then we've got this kind of fun photo capture moment. Basically what happens is I've tracked in this kind of Polaroid photo frame, and I put in this photo flash layer, and then I've drawn a mask around it, and I basically kept it to within the photo frame, and then we fly through it. And then the way that this section ends is with one of my favourite little bits of the film, and this is the seagull crash. So the seagull comes into shot like that, boom, hits the camera, and then I put in some of these little feathers as well, just to make it seem a little bit more real. I'll just show you the raw footage. I found the seagull shot on Shutterstock, so I don't mind that it's a little bit fake and it looks a bit CG. I think I'd rather that people thought it wasn't real than actually did think that we hit a seagull. I've added in some sort of fake spin and some fake wobble you can see, so I basically made it feel like the camera is getting knocked out of the sky. You can see those feathers there, and then it blends into another shot. So we strapped the GoPro to a piece of foam so it would float, and then just chucked it into the sea. And that's how we got this shot. And then when we blend the two together, it kind of makes it feel like the seagull is knocking the camera into the sea. And then the final trick for selling this was just adding in loads of motion blur, some seagull sound effects. So the next scene was at the famous Yacht Week Circle Raft, which is where all the boats moor up together into a circle.
Let's go, Circle Raft.
I really love the way that this looks on the 360 cameras. So I got on the DJ boat in the centre of the circle with the 360 camera on a long pole, and that's how I got this awesome super symmetrical shot, which then transitions into another FPV shot zooming around the outside. I got a fun behind the scenes angle with the Insta360 Go attached to the back of the drone. Actually, as I was shooting this, I noticed some people trying to get a squad pic with a Mavic, and each time I went round I got closer and closer to this Mavic. I thought they would fly out of the way, but they just didn't. So I came pretty close a couple of times to a 0-0 draw with another drone. Now the main thing I want to talk about is vertical mounted GoPros. So for this whole film, we knew that we needed to be shooting in 9x16. I really hate taking a landscape shot from an FPV drone and cropping it down to vertical. So what I wanted to do was design a mount that was going to work really well for both horizontal and vertical GoPro orientations, and this is what I came up with. So I designed this in Cinema 4D and then printed it out on my Snapmaker 3D printer. Let me know in the comments if you're interested in this 3D file for the iFlight Nazgul. Anyway, so here we are in the quad bike shot. This again was shot on the 5-inch. It's nice and simple, this one. We just went out for a little quad bike adventure.
I mean, my shot is just going to be like that, right? Yeah.
And then for the next transition, again, I've done a bit of 3D modeling. This one looks a little bit like a birdhouse. I just wanted something sort of fun and quirky that we could fly the camera through and it would sort of transition us on to the next location. So the next bit of the shot, we hiked up this hillside to get a cool shot of the line raft, which is when all the boats line up together at sunset. Got this really nice FPV shot zooming down the side of the hill. And you'll notice this shot is actually 16:9, not vertical, because we didn't have one of our vertical GoPro mounts with us. And what I didn't really want to do is crop this down because we'd lose all the lovely width. So what I did is I actually sort of extended the top and the bottom of this shot digitally. So I duplicated the bottom like this and sort of stretched it out like that. And then I created a fake sky just by sort of stretching out this layer as well. And then again, just as normal, to create the text bubbles, I just did a 3D camera track and then positioned these sort of bubbles in 3D space. So these are just elements that I can move around like that. So the idea for this sequence was that these guys are trying to take a selfie, so she balances the camera on a rock, but doesn't balance it very well, and then it falls down the hill, but lands in this perfect time lapse and stays there all night. And we actually did shoot this pretty much exactly like that. So what I did is I kind of stood behind them, held the phone, and then when they were in position, I chucked it down the hill. And then we cut that to a GoPro shot of just the GoPro rolling down the hill. And then we got our time-lapse shot, and again, we kind of blended all of these 3 shots together to make it feel like it was just one continuous movement.
Pre-sunrise, like 6 in the morning, we left a time-lapse up here, shooting the boats down in this bay. We come to get it.
And we were a little bit apprehensive about what it was going to be like when we got there in the morning, but it was still rolling. So this is the raw time-lapse that we captured for this. So I actually created these star trails using the echo effect. The raw footage did not have that, it just had single stars because we didn't have particularly long exposures for this shot, otherwise the boats would have been massively overexposed because they're very bright compared to the stars. As you can see here, I've got all these kind of like phone elements, and I wanted this to feel super authentic, so I actually just screen recorded the camera app on my phone and then just matched it up with the footage. And I just tracked in a couple of these yellow squares to act as like face focus points.
Come on, let's go! And step back.
So onto the exercise scene now. I had some fun flying this one on the Cinewoop. Let me just show you inside the edit. Again, I've just done a 3D camera track on this, so I've got my kind of floating 3D text. I can move that around, and then we've got the camera kind of passing underneath it. Makes it feel like it's really a part of the scene. For the transition out, this is another 3D element that I built. So I sort of designed and built this 3D life ring, and then I animated the doors to open. So as we pass through, it takes us on to the next location. Let's just jump into Cinema 4D, and I'll show you this model. So you can see that's the camera moving through the scene there. And then if I just zoom in and do a little render, it takes a bit of time to obviously calculate each of the different bits of frame, but you can see the detail I've got in the rope and some of the reflections, which I think look quite nice. And then what I did is I masked out everything behind the doors, and that enables us to pass into the next shot. So the next scene was the Regatta, and this was probably the one that we were most apprehensive about.
Okay, so it is Regatta day, meaning that we've got to fly these bad boys out there to film all these boats that are sailing away. Ready, boys?
We're ready.
56 boats this week, which is pretty cool.
So we did have a couple of incidents on the first trip where we lost a couple of drones to the sea. And this was pretty frustrating, so I decided I wanted to make something that was going to ensure that the drone was going to float. So this is my custom machined 5-inch drone float, and it's made out of some swimming pool floats. And I did a bit of maths. I put my engineering degree to a good use to design this. So that is 160 square centimeters, 160 times 5. So this is the volume of the float that we're going to make, and that is 800. And I just weighed my Nazgul with a GoPro, and it comes in at 750. So I think this is pretty spot on.
Here we go. We're about to send it up. Got a lot of boats out.
So genuinely the first time I actually used this was out in the open sea. I had no idea if it was going to work, I had no idea if the wind was going to blow it around, but it wasn't too bad, you hardly noticed. It was just a little bit less aerobatic than normal. And then the other thing that was quite tricky was coming in for a nice smooth landing on a fast moving boat in the wind.
I'll do it! Whoa.
So yeah, I'm pretty proud of this. I'll definitely keep it in my bag next time I need to shoot over water.
Here we go then, boys. Alex on the drone. Crowd control down below. Get ready for this final shot.
Dive in through this little archway.
Through the archway and then transition into
Hyperlapse.
hyperlapse and finish. Bish bash bosh.
Easy as that.
Here you go, mate.
Alright, so let's take a look inside the After Effects for this final shot. So we start off nice and high, and then we go down into the tunnel here, and this is where the transition happens. And this basically blends into a gimbal shot that we got just walking in a straight line. You can see it's not particularly flat, this shot. It looks like it's kind of distorted with the top left corner being pinched a bit. And then I've done that, and then as we move through, that distortion just sort of resolves. When you play that nice and quick, with a bit of a whoosh, it does work pretty well, and it is pretty smooth. So then this gimbal move, basically we speed it up loads and we zoom into the handheld shot here, and then we cut into sort of social media scrapbook kind of world. I'm not going to talk too much about this shot because it's exactly the same as the intro shot. I've used the same Photo Flickbook template. And then we zoom down into this montage here. And basically what I've done for these clips is I've just lined up the eyes. And this is actually how I did that. So I created a composition and then I just dragged in some rulers and I put one there in the center of the eyes. And then I just moved them around one by one so that the eyes were always slap bang in the center of the shot. And then when you play it through nice and quick, you get this cool sequence cycling through the eyes like that. And then we cut back to this POV shot as if somebody's just looking through the whole week on their phone. I tracked the faces onto the phone using Mocha. Mocha is a really powerful tool for tracking in a phone screen like that. So you can see here I've got the tracker fixed onto the phone here, and that's how it was easy enough for me to add in the faces. And this was actually shot at exactly the same time as the very beginning. I wanted it to feel like a kind of perfect loop. So if we play the beginning again, you can see these two guys jumping in, and this is effectively a POV angle of that same action. So that is about it for this video. We've come to the end of the film. I appreciate there's lots of stuff that I haven't really talked about. I'm still trying to work out what the best format for this sort of video is, trying to get the balance right between technical editing stuff versus behind the scenes footage. So let me know in the comments what you liked, what you didn't like, or what you'd like to see more of, and I'll do my best to make more videos just like this one in the future. I thought I'd leave you with one final clip. This is a fantastic catch from my boy Alex, catching the Mavic on a moving boat, which is no easy feat by any means. This was one drone that did not end up in the sea, fortunately. Big thanks for watching, hit like, hit subscribe, stay tuned for the next video.